Shrimate Ramanujaya Namaha. I welcome you all to this session on the relevance of spirituality. We are all quite aware and used to materialism, and we think spirituality is something that we should learn in the future or something alien to us. Whereas the right perspective would be spirituality is natural to us. What we study throughout our life, employment, and all such things are quite unnatural. But when I say spirituality is natural to me, the word me would not mean this Atma along with the body. It only mean the Atman. Anything is relevant if we identify with the right individual. Grass is a good feed, provided I am a cow. But if I am a human being, rice is a better feed. So one has to identify and then relate to this world. When I identify myself as a human being with this body, then of course materialism is the right way. But if I become spiritually aware that I am an Atman and not this body, then the whole gamut changes. It's more of spirituality and the satisfaction to the Atman, the enlightenment. All this is in a different platform. But we can't choose one at a time and leave the other. The reason being, this Atman is always along with the body. If I am able to separate it, lead a separate life for the body and another for the Atman, then it is easy to handle materialism and spirituality. But it is not so. The Atman is always in a body. As a result of the past actions, we earn punya or papa. And to enjoy the fruits of punyam and to get punished as a fruit of papa, we take a janma. To enjoy pain and pleasure, which is dukkha and sukha, this body is given to us, without which one cannot experience happiness or pain. As and when we undergo pain, is dukkha, then we spend our past actions, our papams are spent. When we enjoy this life, this material life, then our punyams get spent. Having taken a birth, we add on further to the papam and punyam, so we have to go through few more births. Left to the Atman, it will not experience pain or pleasure. Without the body, you cannot hurt an Atman. When there is no body, there can't be any relatives. Without friends or relatives, there is no pain or pleasure. So, if only the Atman exists, then there is no question of papam, punyam, pain and pleasure. So we have to find a way that we live a life, a peaceful life, as a human being, the body and Atman together. At the same time, not get entangled by the body, but try to lead the path of enlightenment and accomplish our objective, which is birthlessness. Is it possible? It is possible provided we undergo a structured curriculum for that. In good olden days, the practice was we were taught Ganitam, which is mathematics, Vijnanam, which was science, Bhugolam, which is geography, Charitram, which is history, and the languages. The Vedas had information, had a curriculum on all these subjects. You had astronomy, astrology, Gandharva Shastra, which is music, Ayurveda, which is medicine, Artha Shastra, which is commerce and economics. So they were all part and parcel of Vedic studies. In fact, if I can quote, it says, Masan Ardha Panchaman Ashtavarsham Brahmanam Upanayita. You undergo the Upanayanam ceremony when you are 7. The Veda says that you do your Upanayanam at the age of 8, including the period of conception, which is Garbhadharanam. So if you deduct that 1 year, it's 7 years. After your Upanayanam, you have to reach the lotus feet of your Acharya. He starts teaching you the Vedas. That might be 8 years or 10 years or 12 years. When you study those Vedas, you don't stop with the Veda. We classify it into Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha. The new moon, the Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha, the waxing and waning moons. During Shukla Paksha, we learn the Vedas. During Krishna Paksha, Itihasa, Purana and Gandharva, Ayurveda, Arthashastram, etc. So you had a holistic approach to life. The main course was study about Atman and Paramatman, which were from the Vedas. And the ancillary course was about Itihasa, Purana, Ayurveda, Shastra, and they dealt with mathematics, science, astronomy, economics, and all. But unfortunately, we lost this thread. When we stopped having a proper study about the Vedas, we lost the treasure of all other subjects even. Now the status is, those who study the Vedas, they stop with them. They are called Vaidikas. Those who go for academics, we stop with that. We are called Laukikas. So it has become two different streams now. Earlier, both the streams were together. So it was possible to lead a material life, but not entangled in that life. We didn't lose sight on our ultimate objective. The sight was clear. Football. Although the ball gets dribbled by every player, the sight of that player is set on the goal post. He will not move his eyes. So whatever you pass, the ball has to go towards the goal post. Similarly, whether it's economics through Arthashastra, medicine through Ayurveda Shastra, finally, the objective was release, deliverance, which is Mokshananda. There was no confusion in that. The path was clear. Till this was the pattern of study, we realized that materialism is a path which finally leads to spirituality. So we didn't take them as opposite directions. We only took them as enabling directions. I must hit a highway, a freeway. Probably you don't have a freeway next to your house. You will have to travel, say about 10 kilometers to reach the freeway. You go through the side roads. Then you reach the freeway. But if the side road takes you in a totally opposite direction, then you won't reach the freeway. So materialism can be a leading road, can be a connecting road. But the freeway has to be spirituality. This was possible in those days because the education system gave room for both these. It was working together. It was helping each other. But today, the system is totally different. Either you are spiritual or you are materialistic. That's decided by the study that you choose. I go to a Patashala, I learn the Vedas, Itihasa Purana, I lead a very pious life, a Vaidika life. I don't go to a Patashala, I join a school, it is right from pre-KG to 12th standard, then your college, then till your PhD. You won't have one subject from the Vedas or Itihasa Puranas in that stream. Similarly, in a Patashala, you will not have much of mathematics or science. So both are at a distance now. We are caught in a fix. Since the system has changed, you don't have a choice to have both. In fact, there is a saying that it's advantageous to get educated outside India because the subjects for any course is very much fixed. You don't have a choice. Whereas outside India, you are given a choice of 10 subjects. You can choose any subject you want. But if it's a commerce stream, you can take only commerce, economics, statistics in India. If it is a science stream, it can be biology, physics, chemistry, mathematics. If it is a computer science stream, the stream is decided when you enter class 11. Then you don't have a choice. The whole of 11th and 12th is defined. If you have done commerce stream, you will have to get into BCom or chartered accountancy. If you have taken a science stream, you have to get into your doctor or probably an engineer. So this pattern is set. One will not become a lawyer and then try to become a doctor. That never happens there. Whereas outside India, it is possible. You can choose the subjects, you can blend whichever subject you want and take an exam. No one stops you from doing it. But is it possible today? Does it happen in the study pattern that we are talking about? Can you choose 2 subjects from Vedas, 2 from Arthashastra, 2 from modern science, 1 paper from mathematics? That choice is not available. Now, the choice is well within the section of Vaidika, Laukika. You have lot of choices within Vaidika section. You have many choices within Laukika section. In Vaidika, you can become an Upadhyaya, a priest. You can become an Archaka. That's possible. Then you do Agama. If you do Prayoga Chandrika, you become a Vadhyar. You become a priest. If you do Agama, you become a temple priest. If you are able to talk well, you have some oratorical skills, you become an Upanyasaka. Or if you are too interested in palm leaf reading and publishing old palm leaves, yes, you can become a research scholar. You want to be a teacher in any school or college, you can. So many things are available. These are all the choices that you can choose in a Vaidika life. In a Laukika life, it's all too many choices. You are an engineer, or a doctor, or a lawyer, or a research assistant, or many things are possible. But there is no way that we can find an intersection set between Vaidika and Laukika. That is the issue today. If we don't address this issue, then the gap will only keep widening. The way what we do now to come over this problem is we attend evening classes. If you are into a school, your school gets over by 4 p.m. Then you come back home, have some tiffin, then the child is admitted to some tuition classes. In the tuition, in those special classes, you will learn Vedas, Divya Prabandha, Sanskrit, Tamil, Itihasa, Gita, Shlokas, all are possible. So these are all as special classes and very minimal sessions, no exam, no need that you have to score marks in that. So that becomes a totally non-detailed study. It is not a part of your main curriculum, although it is. It's good that we are able to study that, but more than that is not possible. Now even here, in a Laukika class, whoever is a Laukika going to a school, a part of Vaidika, a part of Vedas are given, are fed to the child. That is done. But when you go to a Veda class, if you are in a Patashala, I don't know how much are they able to feed with the Laukika modern education. People have started trying it now. They will try and do it in the future. So now we are here to talk about the relevance of spirituality in our daily modern life. Why this topic itself why does it become important? The reason is, I am almost a Laukika now. 99% of all of us are all Laukikas. Then how do we bring in spirituality in our daily life? How do we add that? Do I need it or not? I am okay with having a Laukika life. I am good with a modern education that feeds me. I can build a house. I have a family. Everything is fine. Then why spirituality? The reason is, there are certain values in life which we need. Certain good qualities that we need to lead a peaceful life. Those qualities or values are not taught in the modern education system. They are not a part of the Laukika education system. So we lost them. Is it okay if we lose them? It is not okay. You will certainly have trouble in our life, even as a Laukika. In our Laukika life, we will have the trouble. One such is work-life balance. We talk a lot. There are even research studies on that. You can get a PhD on that subject. I think there are a general manager available in every company to take care of this. So that has become an important subject which the Laukika study is finding very difficult to address. They don't have it in their DNA even. They never do it. But if it's possible, it will be possible only in a Vaidika study. How do we balance between work and life? This is one need. Second, tolerance. That has become a big question. We are not able to tolerate as we are all towards individual space, towards independence and individuality. If you are not able to tolerate, then that leads to a stressed life. If you can tolerate, if you can forbear, then you can release your stress. Take the case of a pressure cooker. Pressure builds in. There is a knob, there is a hole. That gets released. There is a lever there. It gets released. The pressure is released. But here in a Laukika life, in a materialistic life, there is no vent for that pressure. It builds in. I am unable to release that pressure. Then the pressure cooker will only burst. We get into trouble. So how do we address that? We need tolerance. 1, work-life balance. 2, we need that tolerance. 3, we need shanti in life. Peace. There has to be peace. That peace cannot be bought. That peace has to be earned and practiced. So what do I do to earn peace in life? I have to be tolerant. I must have peace in life. There has to be a work-life balance. Then love. Anbunu Tamil solrom. Care nu solrom. Love. How can I love everyone around me? How can I be useful to them? That's also a question. Because in this competitive world, what is said is love or affection or care has taken a back seat. Instead, challenge, competition, having an edge, ambitious, aggressive are the words that we use. In fact, I would be using a very naive language, an outdated language when I call for love, care, and affection. You won't get a job if you talk about love and affection to your employer, but you will get a job only when you talk about aggressiveness, ambitious, very aggressive planning. That makes the difference. But without love and care, one cannot be happy in a family and one cannot be useful to others. How do I practice that? How do I teach love? Where from do I have a source for that knowledge? I'm not even aware of that love. How do I do it? Then lastly, satisfaction. We are all happy, but it's all momentary happiness. There is no a long living satisfaction. How can I redefine satisfaction from happiness to tripti? Anandam is one, tripti is another. You can feel happy, but if you are able to stretch that happiness, you can. Can you make it permanent happiness? If it is permanent happiness, that is satisfaction. How do I make it happen? Then, from money, how do I transform to wealth? I have to save wealth, but I am saving money now. How can I save? How can I make my life better with saving wealth? Money to wealth is a question. Happiness to satisfaction is a need. Happiness to peace is also a need. Challenge and ambition must transform to tolerance. Yes, it is a need. I can't keep working always. I can't keep at home always. There has to be a balance between the two. There has to be a work-life balance. Now, all these are subjects that are, yes, we need them. For sure we need them. But we are not taught these subjects at all in our Laukika education. Okay, Swami, given this fact, are you taught all these things in a Vaidika education? Yes, we are. We are taught about this in the Vedas themselves. The stories that are in the Vedas, the very great concepts of the Upanishads, then of course, throughout the Itihasas and Puranas, you have many, many happenings. The life and history of our Acharyas, of the Rishis, they are themselves a fund of this knowledge. They are themselves a fund, a role model of all that we wanted to know. I can introduce you a simple concept. How can I feel peace? How can I care for others? How can I love others? It is possible through spirituality. Spirituality is a study about Atma, about Paramatma, the life as a whole, and not stick to human beings, but stick to beings. All the Jiva Rashi, instead of restricting to human beings. That's spirituality. Ahimsa, Indriya Nigraham, and respect to others, love, care, jnana, bhakti, all. These are all the subjects in a Vaidika education. These are all the subjects in your spirituality. So in spirituality we learn about Atma, Paramatma, and not restrict the study to this external, outwardly body. A study about Atman, what does it tell you? From your orientation towards Parag, you reorient towards Pratyak. That's a big difference. I'm able to see all of you here. This is Paragartham. Parag is out, external. Pratyak is internal. Atma is internal. All others are external. If I meditate on you, if I reflect about you, if I talk to you, then I am in the pursuit of Paragartha. But if I start thinking about myself, reflecting on the Atman, which is me, and reflecting on Paramatman, then it is Pratyagartha. If I redefine this, if I refocus from Paragartha to Pratyagartha, then peace becomes easier. The reason is, when do you lose peace? You had an expectation that it was not fulfilled. You wanted someone to do something that didn't happen. You wanted yourself to achieve something which did not happen. You wanted to be in a place where it is silent. That did not happen. You wanted all your relatives to respect you. That did not happen. When all these expectations are wasted, these expectations are not fulfilled, then you lose Shanti. You have Shanti when all these expectations are fulfilled. You lose Shanti if any one of this is not fulfilled. Now, how do I do that? I have expectations from everyone else, including myself. I expect something from me. I expect something from people all around here. If that happens, I am peaceful. If that does not happen, I am not peaceful. I lose peace. How do we go forward? Even if my expectations are not met, can I be peaceful? That's the one way to think about it. That is difficult, Swami. There are expectations. I can't go without expectations. But they have to be met. If they are not met, I lose my peace. Now, when I told you about Paragartha and Pratyagartha, if you expect many things from people who are outside you, then the probability of not getting fulfilled is quite high. So the probability of losing peace is also very high. Change it, redefine it. Now reflect upon yourself, which is Pratyagartha Anubhavam. If you expect something for you to do, if you expect from yourself, then either you have that strength to complete it. If it's done, then you are peaceful. If it is not done, if it is an outsider who doesn't fulfill your expectation, then I get angry on him. I shout at him. But if it is me who has not fulfilled it, I can't shout at myself. I can't get disappointed about myself as I got disappointed about another person. What do I do then? If I am not able to fulfill myself, my expectation is not fulfilled by me, then I will only try again and again till I am successful. But I don't have that patience when others don't do it. If someone else fails to do it, then I don't have patience. If I fail to do it, I have too much of patience. That patience will really give you peace. So, instead of having expectations from outsiders, have it from yourself. How is that possible? If you refocus from Paragartha to Pratyagartha. In olden days, your father or your grandfather, they did not have a washing machine. They did not have a servant maid. They went to a river. They washed their own clothes. They cleaned their own houses. Probably you are doing it here. I don't deny. You will have to do it. But there are many, many people who have 4 or 5 servants at home. They don't do anything. And whenever a servant doesn't fulfill, you get disappointed. Then you lose peace. You will also make a statement. After having 6 or 7 servants, probably having them, I have lost peace. Without them, I would have been peaceful. அவர்களை வைக்கவே எல்லாம் போச்சு. இத்தனை பேரை வச்சும் ஒன்றும் பிரயோஜனம் இல்லை. This is where you lose peace. Instead, you clean your utensils, clean your clothes, clean your floor. You do your job. 1, you are healthy because you have exercised. 2, you have no expectations from outsiders. So they can't disappoint you. If they don't disappoint, you are peaceful. So think about yourself, depend on yourself, think more about the Atman, the level, the power of Atman to deliver. If you are able to get that point rightly, we are not doing it now. We think we get energy only from the food that we consume. But it is not true. If you have clean air and clean water, there were rishis who were surviving only on air and water. One rishi was called Abhakshaha, another Vayubhakshaha. Abhaksha, Vayubhaksha. One who consumes only air, one who consumes only water. Yes, Swami, I think I can also be called so because I consume air, I consume water. But we are talking about rishis who consumed only water or air, not water after food, not air after food. They had only air or only water because that's a source of energy. Don't you believe that water is a source of energy? Hydropower gets generated from water. Is wind not a source of energy? Windmills generate power from wind. But we think wind and water have no energy. We don't consider them at all. They do have energies. But we don't know the art. We don't have the skill to consume that air and water and get energized. But of course, without them, we can't live even. So we think that this food alone makes us survive. This is on food I live. It is not so. You live on many more aspects that are mentioned in the Vedas. But we don't have a study of them now. We have lost the treasure even. Let us get back. So you have to be tolerant. Think about yourself. If I have expectations from myself, I deliver the expectation, feel peace. If I don't, I retry. If I don't, I retry. But never get disappointed. When it is others, then I don't have a control over them. When it is myself, I have a control over myself. That's the reason why the Vedas talk about Paragartha to Pratyagartha. There's a small lecture session here now. You are listening to me. Suppose if someone enters, they come, they take their seat, they sit down. Would you not look at them? Turn around, look at them. There is a slight disturbance for 3 or 4 minutes. Then you again start thinking, you again start listening to the lecture. Now this is because lecture is on Pratyagartha. We are set, our focus is on Paragartha. Although I want to listen to Pratyagartha, I am unable to continue that. The reason being, I think Parak is natural to me. I think Pratyak is unnatural to me. But the fact is, Pratyak is natural to me. How will you agree that? How will you validate that statement? Pratyagartha is Atma. Is Atma natural or the body natural? Atma has remained to be Atma throughout the countless number of births that we have taken. Whereas the body has constantly kept changing. Even in one birth, body has constantly changed. I am not the same as when I was a 2-year-old child, then 10-year-old, 30, 40, 56 today, 60, 80. I have been constantly changing. When I say I, the body has been constantly changing. But the Atma was never changing. He was permanent. He was imperishable, whereas the body perished. When me, the Atma, has never changed, whatever doesn't change easily has to be natural. Whatever continuously changes has to be unnatural. If something keeps on changing, that's not nature. It should not change. Nature can have internal changes. It can have spring, autumn, winter, so on. But what I am telling you is, trees will always be trees. They won't change. Bushes would be, shrubs would be, water would be, river would be. They don't change. Since they don't change, we call it as nature. We can't easily change. If you just try to tamper with that a little, and that's the effect we see throughout the world now. You have not seen all these things. There is too much of forest fire, bush fire, then the rise in water level, rise in sea level. The seasons are too changing. It's already 10 days, 12 days in November, but still it is suddenly hot, it is suddenly cold. Why so many changes? Because we have tampered. Nature should not be tampered, and nature is something that is more permanent. Since Atma is more permanent rather, but the body is not permanent. Since it is not permanent, that has to be unnatural. Atman has to be natural. So if we realize that, a study on Pratyagartha is natural to me. Don't two parties talk about natural alliance and unnatural alliances? You would have heard in Kashmir, you would have heard in Karnataka, you would have heard in Maharashtra, you would have heard in many more places. Natural allies, unnatural allies. Natural ally is Pratyak. For an Atma, the Jnana to focus on Pratyagartham is a natural ally. But What we think is, we think that an unnatural ally is a natural ally. It is not so. A study of Atma is a Pratyagartha, a study about Pratyak. When you are engaged in Pratyagartha, do not allow to grace, do not allow to wander in Paragartha. Who will teach us this? Of course, all the studies in science and mathematics are about Paragartha. They are not about Pratyagartha. But it is not difficult. In the beginning stages, study about Pratyagartha would be difficult because you are almost made to shut your eyes to outside world. You are made to focus on the inside world. But if you don't focus, what do you do in a camera? You have a camera, don't you focus? It's out of focus. You zoom in, zoom out. You get a good picture when you zoom in. You don't get a sharp picture, but you get too many details when you zoom out. When you zoom in, you focus on, you point on one. It's smaller and smaller. When I want a direction, I take my mobile phone, I ask for a direction. It tells you from here to there, this is the gross direction. Then I slowly zoom it. Then I get to that suburb. Then I get to that road. Then to that location, to my destination. As and when I go closer, it automatically enlarges and tells me the exact location. Similarly, when you meditate on Pratyagartham, from a gross Paragartham, you are zooming in, zooming in, zooming in to the Pratyak Atma. And that Pratyak will be with all details possible. The specifications would be very clear. The detailing would be beautiful. If you are able to get that, then spirituality begins. From materialism, you are now transformed. You have now taken a shift. It's a dynamic change towards spirituality. And that spirituality will certainly give you peace of mind. Because it's not too many things now. We are focused. It is not unnatural, it is natural. It is not ever changing, it is unchanging. Something not changing, lesser disturbance. Something not unnatural, lesser disturbance. Not many, one, lesser disturbance. So all this, in fact, they culminate into peace of mind. If you don't have all this, then it is disturbed mind. You need peace, then you need Pratyagartha. If you want work-life balance, you need Pratyagartha. The reason is, you get married. What is the purpose of marriage? Kurattazhvan was the disciple of Swami Ramanuja. He was in a small village called Kuram. It's between Kanchipuram and Arakonam, about 10 kilometers from Kanchipuram. I'm just narrating a small incident from the life of Swami Kurattazhvan. On a night, he was in fact the chieftain of that village. He was the head of that village, that rather a zamindar or a panchayat head. So he was heading that village. He went around the village in the night to know whether people are peaceful. They're all leading a very peaceful life. He saw a small light burning even at midnight. There were some discussions going on. He peeped into the window, wanted to find out what was the discussion at the middle of the night. There was a girl who is yet to be married, and that girl was crying. The parents were talking about a mass suicide. Can we all kill ourselves? The girl asked, why for my sake you should kill yourself? The father said, whoever is married to you, your jataka, your horoscope says that that person would die. If you get married, the one who married would die. I don't want to kill someone for the sake of getting you married. If I don't get you married, then we are at fault. So we have no other go. All three of us have to die. Kurattazhvan listened to that. Then the next day morning, he called for them. All the three came. Kurattazhvan said, can I marry this girl? They were shocked. If you marry this girl, you will die. Kurattazhvan said, I won't. I am going to live a very long, long life. How? He explained to them, the purposes of wedding, of marriage, there are two. One, Laukika, other, Vaidika. Your astrology, Your horoscope can only talk about the Laukika part of it. It has no influence on the Vaidika part of it. Your stars or your planets can influence your material life. They can't touch your spiritual life. Spiritual life is under the mercy of God. Material life can be a little influenced by your planets and your stars. So he said, we will not have any physical contact. We will not have any conjugal relationships. Instead, after getting married, one can do all the dharma. Artha can be spent in the right way. We can jointly search for moksham. We can jointly enjoy Brahman. All these are possible. So we will get married. We will lead a very pious life. That life should make us happy, and we won't get into a conjugal relationship. If that is not there, I am sure I will survive for 100 years. They were not quite convinced, but Kooratalvan convinced them and got married, and as he said, he lived for more than 95 years. How was that possible? And let me add one more point to it. Kooratalvan had two sons, Sri Parashara Bhatta and Vedavyasa Bhatta. And it is said they were born by the blessings, by the grace of Swami Nambarumal, Lord Ranganatha, and not through conjugal relationship. By the prasadam of Ranganatha, Andal, the Dharmapatni of Kooratalvan, she got two children, Sri Parashara Bhattaryaha, Srirangesha Purohitaha, Shivatsanka Sutta Sriman, Shayase Mestu Bhuyase. Now tell me, was it not work-life balance? How do they arrive at that balance? If I think that materialism alone is the purpose of marriage, then the life becomes stressed, because I don't have any responsibility on the other side. I go to office at 7 a.m. in the morning, I return at 7 p.m. in the night. What all I know is materialism. Because I think the purpose of marriage itself is to earn money, save money, maintain a good family, high standard of living, have all comforts in this world. But that is not so. Dhanam, dharmam, anushtanam, aradhanam are all equally important in this married life. So if you know that, then you have to devote time for that. If you devote time, then that much time has to be carved out of your material life. If you carve out that time, then there is an automatic work-life balance. Life is this, marital life is this, work is that. If I don't recognize the Vaidika part of marital life, then I don't devote time for that. If you recognize that, then you devote time. If you have to devote time, you have to reduce the time engaged in materialism. There's no other go. You have only 24 hours. If you give all 24 to that, yes, that is stressed life. If you carve out and give about 4-5 hours to this, then you can balance your work and life. So work-life balance is possible in spirituality. Peace is possible in spirituality because the thought is on pratyagartha, not paragartha. Then tolerance is an automatic byproduct. How do you become tolerant? You become if you are able to understand the others. If I think only about myself, that I am great, I am a great performer, all others are mediocre when compared to me, they are inferior when compared to me, then you don't tolerate. It is said about Sri Rama, Kshamaya Prithvi Samaha. Narada and Valmiki, they draw parallels. They draw examples to explain Rama. Samudra iva gambhirye. Rama is magnanimous. One cannot measure the depth of Rama's mind as a sagara, as an ocean. Samudra iva gambhirye. You can't find the depth of ocean, the magnanimity of ocean, the vastness of ocean. Yes, even the vastness of Rama you can't measure. Samudra iva gambhirye, sthairye himavaniva. Steadfastness like Himachala Parvata. Kshamaya Prithvi Samaha, in patience and tolerance, is equal to Prithvi Mata, Bhumata. Kshamaya Prithvi Samaha. Dhanadena, in his wealth, he surpassed Kubera himself. So there are many examples for Rama, one for each of his quality. Now, our subject is Kshama, tolerance, and patience. Forgiving is kshama. Tolerance, sahiputtanmainu solrom. It's very much reduced in this world because we only think about an independent individual. We don't recognize dependence towards this society. We are dependent in this society. We can't have water unless the rivers flow. I can't have food unless the farmers work. I can't have a fruit unless the plant or trees bear a fruit. So I am dependent so much on this society and others, whereas I don't tolerate others. You have to wait. And Bhagavan has tolerated for me a lot. I was not this 10 years ago. I was not this in my earlier birth. But Bhagavan has been very tolerant to me, patient to me, and whatever I am today is as a result of that patience. But when I am enjoying the benefit of Bhagavan's tolerance, why don't I extend the same to others? I am a beneficiary of that. If you are benefited, extend that benefit to others. Yan petra peru peruga ivvayyahamnu solrom. So when you are an example of the beneficiary of God's tolerance, then you also must be tolerant toward others. Peace, tolerance, work-life balance, love are certain things which are very important in spirituality, but they don't find that importance in materialism. If you are somehow able to manage this, then finally we get satisfied. Satisfaction is tripti. How do you get tripti? I have lot of wants, Swami. My needs are many. I slowly fulfill one by one, I fulfill all my needs. Now that all my needs are fulfilled, I am satisfied. Can you make this statement? Never can you make this statement. You can only make this statement if you reduce your needs, if you shrink your needs, then they can be fulfilled. If you increase your needs, they can never be fulfilled. Can you have an samudra snana, alai oindu samudra snana nadakuma? Will the waves stop for me to have a samudra snana? They will never. Will your agonies, your miseries in this life stop for me to feel happy? You will have to feel happiness within this. It cannot be alone. Can you learn to ride a bicycle when there is no traffic in the road? Stop all. I am a good driver, Swami, provided there are no other vehicles on the road. You can't make that. So you have to drive within this. Ala onji samudra snanam panna mudiyadu. Nama ella triptiyum fulfill pannikavum mudiyadu. Ella wants. There may be many wants. You can't fulfill all. You would have seen log woods, wood and wood, firewood. You add firewood, the fire burns. Someone told that add more and more firewood so that the fire burns to the heart full. And once it is heart filled, then the fire will stop. Will it stop? You add a firewood, it will burn more. Add a firewood, it will burn more. Whereas we think if firewood is added, then fire would burn as much as it wants. Since it has burnt as much as it is needed, it is satisfied, so it will stop. It will never. Bhuyasi Krishnavartmeva Havisha. Krishnavartma, the fire, it burns more and more. It has more heat. It burns more. And I can't give you a better example than what you have been experiencing in the past week. It burns more and more. There are more places. Was it satisfied? It was not. The moment the spark reaches another, it catches fire there. The sparks reach another, it catches there. And it travels for 500, 700, 800 kilometers. So it can never be quenched. It can never be satisfied. How can it be satisfied? Make the feed not available. What do? Either you make it wet. You make the next bush wet. Then the fire cannot spread. Or you dried, you burn that next bush yourself. If you burn it for yourself, then there is nothing there. If there is nothing, fire cannot spread. If there is anything, if there is something, fire will spread. Take a camphor, drop it on a dry land, it won't further burn. But take a camphor, drop it out on land which has some grass, it will catch that grass, burn more. So don't give feed, don't give fuel. Giving fuel is adding to your wants. Fulfilling your wants, you can't get satisfied. Instead, stop that, burn that bush, keep the plain ground so you can't burn more. Similarly, for us, we have to reduce our wants and not increase our wants, fulfill them and get satisfaction. Satisfaction is possible by reduced needs, reduced wants. It is totally the message by Vedas and not by material studies. In your modern education, whatever you are taught is about increasing your wants. You get a mobile phone. You are told to talk and talk more. You get a data plan. You are told to use more data. You take up, so you want to eat something. Go to a shop. You buy something to eat. You are told that you buy 4 pieces, you are given 1 more piece free. To use your shirt, buy 2 shirts, you get 1 shirt free. Why are you made to buy more? Why are you made to use more? It is only on your want. Many companies survive. They make profit by just fueling our interest. So the whole concept on modern education is more consumption. More consumption is possible by more needs and more wants. Whereas in Vaidika culture, it is less consumption. Why? Less wants, so less consumption. Why should I consume less? Because the resources are depleting, the demands are more. If you, the one who is affluent, if you, the affluent class, use more and more, then the needy class will not get at all. That is the reason why Vedas talk about fasting. Why fast? If you fast on a day, you can feed another person. If you don't fast, you have consumed. So it talks about sacrifice, tyaga, austerity measures, fasting, mauna vrata, reducing my comfort. Why? So that all the beings in this universe are fed. Whereas, if you are asked to consume more and more, to use more and more, then you are denying someone else. They don't get it. No, Swami, let them also get it. You can also use more. We can produce more. You can produce, provided you use up all the resources Mother Earth gave you. You can't produce more without damaging your mineral resources, your coal resources. Don't you know what happens in all those things? The more you export, you have more dissenting voices. The more you explore minerals, then the more it's depleting. It will. They are not eternal. They are not Atman. Someday or other they will deplete. So if you consume more, you can produce more, you can make more profit, but you won't have it for the next generation. So you will have to reduce your wants. If you reduce, you are satisfied. That reduction, that fasting, that austerity is a pet subject for Vedas. They are not pet subject for economics and commerce. They are in fact dead against that. So peace, satisfaction, work-life balance, tolerance, love, affection, care are all pet subjects for any Veda, to Itihasa and Purana. That is the reason why we say, but are all these issues not very relevant for today's world? They are very relevant. You have to be tolerant. You have to agree to others. You have to distribute wealth. You must talk about wealth and not money. So all these are very much needed subjects. But these subjects are not the subjects in modern education. So there is certainly a need for spirituality. It has to be a blend. I am not telling you, all of you, to become sannyasins. Instead, even in this life as a grihastha, you can add a tinge of sannyasin. You can add a color. You can include a color of asceticism, of detachment, of giving. If that is added, then of course life becomes very, very colorful. So please let us agree that spirituality is very much relevant. More so it is relevant in 2019 and 2020. It may not have been so much relevant in Krita Yuga. in Treta Yuga, but they were practicing a lot. Today the practice has reduced, but the relevance has increased. So we have to try, study more and put them to practice. We will certainly have some hurdles in making this happen because we have a big gap now. The distance between spirituality and materialism is too wide. It's not small. So we will have to make a try. It has to be a perseverance that should make it happen. I'm sure we will all try and make it happen. In case you have some questions about the hurdles that you have met, now the session is open. You can go ahead.